You are now unmuted.
Okay, good morning ladies and gentlemen. Karibuni sana kwa darasa la leo. I hope you had a wonderful and relaxing weekend. I know it has been a terrible one for us Manchester United fans, but we just lost the battle but not the war, so we keep fighting. Congratulations to Liverpool fans. I know they are very excited about the win they had yesterday. So karibuni sana. Let's see what we can be able to do again today. We look at some practical. We really want to have a look at CSS. Last Monday we looked at a few HTML tags, and today we want to look at CSS Cascading Stylesheet. Just a recap of what we did last time. We were able to. Okay. Last time we were able to create a page called home.html, and we learned how to create the page, how to save it. We also learned a few editors that we can use in order to make our work of typing HTML scripts easier. So we also looked at how to save, how to close, how to open, and a few tags. So right now I just want to open this page using Google Chrome. So it's my default browser, so I'll just double click it to open it up in Google Chrome. So really we looked at the, for example, the heading 1 tag, we looked at the paragraph tag, the P tag. We looked at, for example, the quotation tag. We look at the M tag or element. You can also call them element. We looked at the different types of lists, ordered and ordered, and also the definition list. And lastly, we looked at some character entities. So those are some of the things that we had a chance of looking into last time. Today, we want to look at CSS, Cascading Stylesheet. Yeah. Okay. I need to download Notepad++. I haven't. Okay. I haven't installed it. I formatted my computer over the weekend and I forgot to do zoom it. I forgot to install it. Download Notepad++. Which are some of the other editors that you remember we talked about last time? You can type on the chat box. Other than Notepad++, which other editor can you use to write HTML scripts? Dreamweaver, Emacs. I haven't even heard of this one. Oh, Microsoft Office Word. Okay. Brackets, Sublime Text. Yeah, Sublime is very good. Visual Studio Code or something. VS Code. I hope it's that. Atom. Okay, amazing. Some of them I even don't know. Like I haven't used Microsoft Office Word to write HTML code, but I know it's powerful and it can be able to do that. Okay. Okay. Updates are available. Updates. me just finish up on this one. I will be done in a moment. Okay, so I'm done installing the applications I needed. Okay. Okay, so I need to open this so that we can continue editing it. To do that, I right click, then open with. I can come here, open with, then I choose the app. But if I install Notepad++, it just comes as the second option here. So I can just click on that, and it's gonna open up using Notepad++. Okay, I can zoom into my code by pressing Control on my keyboard and rotating my mouse cursor like that. So that's how to zoom in, or you can use this. Uh, you can use this one, to zoom in and zoom out. Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to ask at this point before we start the CSS, is there any question that you have about implementing this particular web page? Did you try and do it on your own later? Did you encounter any challenge? I'll be able to help you with that right now. So if you had any challenge, this is your chance to ask so that I can sort you out, then we can move on. Maybe I can also do a poll to understand whether you really did it or you didn't. Okay. So just answer yes or no. Were you able to implement this web page? Yes or no? So just reply to that poll and tell the truth. There's no problem if you didn't. Just find time and do it later. Okay, you can see most people did it. Okay, so also as you do that, please post on the chat if you had any challenge implementing it. If you are unable to do it, what was the problem? Did you face any difficulty doing it? Or you didn't just attempt it? Okay, so 51 have responded. I think that's a good number. Out of 65, that's enough for now. So 35 were able to do it. 17 did not do it. So what was the reason why you didn't do it? What was the reason why you didn't do it? Is it that you didn't get time, or did you encounter difficulty while doing it? Mm. Okay, so to those ones that answered no, please respond to that question. Why didn't you do it? Is it that you didn't attempt it, or you had problems implementing it? Okay. I'm expecting about 17 responses. Audrey and Brian, what was the problem? Audrey and Brian, you found difficulty in implementing it. What was the problem? If you can share it with us, please. What was the challenge you encountered? Audrey, Brian? I clicked that by mistake, Brian. Okay. Audrey? I hope you'll be joining in with your mic because it can be better if you respond by audio because we can discuss because typing you take too long to type. Also, when you find time, please work on your typing by visiting this website, typing.com. Okay. Okay. Glitching. Okay. Okay. So let's move on. Sorry about that, Audrey. So today we want to look at CSS. We just want to understand how CSS works. So we're going to be looking at, for example, the generic structure of CSS. Then we are going to look at how to apply CSS. And we are also going to look at how to what do we call it? We're going to look at different types of selectors, and specifically also how to group selectors. We're also going to have a look at the universal selector. Then we will then look at, after that, what we call selector inheritance. Selector inheritance. Remember, all this, I'm getting this from topic number 3, theory topic number 3, which we looked at together. And we're also going to look at an example of descendant selectors. After that, we will have a look at what we call pseudo elements. Then after that, we will have a look at the class selector. Then number 9, we're going to look at the ID selector. Number 10, we're going to have to look at the div and the span elements. Number 11, we're going to look at the CSS properties. So like the text properties, the box properties, if we get time, also the list properties, how to do background image, and also the floating and positioning.
Still hear me? Are you still able to hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? One, two, one, two, one, two. 1, 2, mic testing. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2.
You are now muted. You are now unmuted.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
You are now muted. You are now unmuted.
1, 2. What about now? Are you able to hear me? Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's move on. Let's begin with number 1 here. We want to look at the generic structure of CSS. Now, this is just a reminder of what we learned in the theory class. Really, when you talk about the generic structure of CSS, we mean how do you write CSS code? What parts does it have, the CSS code? So that is what we want to begin by looking at the generic structure as a reminder. So file new, let me just zoom in a little bit. So number 1, in CSS you can do comments just like in C or C++. So this is how we write comments in CSS. Okay, I think my computer is hanging. Wow. Okay, so generally, to write a CSS code, you need to begin with what we call the selector, like that. Then you need an opening and a closing curly bracket, like that. Uh-oh. What is not happening? Wow. Oh. Okay, I'm really sorry. Samuel, yes? Samuel, you want to say something? Okay, sorry, my computer is behaving again this morning. So you need a selector. A selector, simply stated, is used to select a particular HTML element. So like the P element or the H1 element, H2, body, etc. So that is what we call a selector. Then inside these curly brackets, you need to put what we call properties. A property. Let me just call it property. Property, property. A property and a value. And then another property, full colon, value, semicolon. So really that is how we write CSS. So as an example, for example, the selector can be H1. Then I'll do my opening and closing curly brackets. I'll go in between, I'll indent my code using the tab on my keyboard, and then I'll type a property. A property can be something like color. So for example, color, and maybe I want red, and then semicolon, like that. So that is a property. Some properties have more than one name. For example, the letter spacing property. So for example, I want letter spacing for my H1s to be 5 pixels. So that is what we call a property. So anytime a property has more than one name, then we separate that particular those words with a hyphen. So letter spacing. We're going to see others. So generally, that is the generic structure of CSS. It has a selector, it has a property and value. So selector here is H1, property is color, value is red. And that is how we write CSS. That is how we write CSS code. Okay, so let's go on and look at how to apply CSS. We have 3 ways of applying CSS. Maybe you guys can list them. How do we apply CSS to our web pages? You can list the 3, just mention one, just type in one of them, and then we can be able to look at them one by one. Okay, so embedded, external, and inline. Very good. So that is it. Thank you very much for responding. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So let's begin with external. So how do you create an external style sheet? Of course, you come to new like that. Then you begin writing your code. So we've already written some code here, which I'm just going to copy. Then I'll come here and paste it. We've already written code for H1. So just like that. Okay, then how do you save your external style sheet? You come to File, then you come to Save, or you can press Ctrl S on your keyboard. Then you can come to this particular folder that we called website project. So you just open it up. Then we want to save this with the name stylesheet.css. Stylesheet.css. Now, you can put everything in one folder, but it's advisable that you put different things or related things on different folders. So on the website project, I can create another folder, and I call this, for example, I can call this style sheet. So I'm just calling this a folder style sheet, so that I save my external style sheet inside it. Then here I can call this stylesheet.css, not .com but .css. So always remember to save your external CSS page. You have to save it with the .css extension. So if I do save like that, then now, yeah, as you can see, I have my so that is how you write comment in CSS. So this is the main CSS external style sheet. Okay, like that. Okay, so this is how you do it. Then I can save my work again. Save it. Then how do you include it in your HTML page so that it can take effect? Right now, if you come to our page and refresh, nothing changes because we've not included the external style sheet to this page. So to include it on your page, you need to go to your page, then use the link element. The link element is inserted in between the head element. You can do it just after the title, for example. So here we can do the link element. The link element is an empty element, so it does not have an opening and closing tag. Some of the attributes you must put here include the href attribute. The href attribute is used to give the location of your external style sheet. So for us, we've saved it in a folder called style sheet, then /, then the name and the extension of the file. So stylesheet.css. Most of the time, if your CSS is not working, your external style sheet, most likely the value you've entered here is incorrect. So if you've put it in a folder, make sure you start with the folder name, then /, then the file name and the extension. So the link element also has the rel attribute, where you specify that this is a style sheet like that. Okay. Autocomplete, made a mistake there. Okay, and lastly, it has the type. The type attribute. So as you can see, if you mistype anything, the color, if it's an attribute, it's supposed to be colored red. So if you mistype and the color does not change, it just means that it's wrong. So that's the other thing we said about these advanced editors. They help you to troubleshoot your code. So if I do type, then you can see that it changes to red. So that's the other advantage of using advanced editors rather than just the simple notepad editor. Okay, so here you type text.css, just specifying that it is a CSS file. So generally those are the three attributes that must go into the link element: href, rel, and type. Okay, so now I can save my work. Save, and I can come to my browser and refresh. So as you can see, after I refresh, the color of my H1 changes to red. The letter spacing is also increased. I can come here to style sheet again, maybe change this to 20 pixels so that you can see how that changes. Computer is hanging again. Save it, then come back here and refresh. So that is what letter spacing does. The spaces between letters is what we call the letter spacing property. Okay, so I just wanted you to see that, but it can return this, for example, to 5 pixels. Okay. Okay, so next so that is external style sheet. I don't want to add anything else there. What I want to do now is to show you what we call embedded style sheet. So with embedded style sheet, again, it goes inside the head. So here you use what we call the style element. Style and style. So it has an opening and a closing tag. Then enter, and now you can type your code. There. So for example, we can say H2, like that. We can indent, then we can say color, for example, blue, like that. Color blue. Okay, then we can save. Our work like that. Then we can come to our HTML page and refresh. So if we refresh, then all the H2s are going to be colored blue, as you can see. So that is what we call embedded. This is embedded. But if we have more than one H2s and we want, for example, this H2 to be colored green, then we can do what we call inline. So with inline CSS, you use the style attribute. So style is equals to, then you come here, then you do color, like that, then for example green, then semicolon. If you want to do another property, for example letter spacing, okay, letter spacing, for example, is equals to, not is equals to, full column, like that. Then for example you want to do 5 pixels, then semicolon, like that. So this is what we call inline CSS. So if I save this work, if I save that work and come back to my browser and refresh.
Excuse me?
Oh, the color didn't change. Yes, please?
The color you didn't finish writing green.
Oh.
Like the spelling.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. And I think that is a very good mistake I did there. So you can see that with CSS and HTML, if whatever you've done is incorrect, your page is still going to, your browser is still going to execute your script as much as it can. The only thing, for example, that you might not realize is that you won't have that particular theme change. Are you seeing that? Like the color here has not changed. So unlike other languages like C, C++, where you'll have an error, with HTML and CSS we don't have errors, and your entire code won't be able to execute. No. So we don't have that in HTML and CSS, which makes it easier to write. So I can just do that. Thank you for noting that. Then I'll save it. Then I'll refresh. Now you can see for this one, the color now becomes green, and the letter spacing has also changed. So that is what we call inline. So I hope you now get the difference of how to apply inline, embedded, and external style sheet. Okay, so the other bit is on grouping selectors. Grouping selectors. Now, for example, let me see. I'm trying to find a good example I can give for this one. Okay. Now, for example, instead of for example, we want the letter spacing for all our headings to be 5 pixels. So instead of typing here again, letter spacing 5 pixels for our H2s. So instead of doing that, we can group these selectors, because we have this same code. We have this same code in our external style sheet here. We have it here. We have it here for our H1. So we have it here. So instead of putting it here, then come and say H2 and we repeat the same thing, we can group these selectors. How do you group selectors? We group selectors by separating the selectors with a comma. So H1, then comma, then space, like that. H2, like that. Then comma, H3 for example, comma, H4, comma, H5, comma, H6. So that is how we group selectors. That is how we group selectors, by using a comma and a space. And we can say that for all these headings we want the letter spacing to be 5 pixels, like that. So this is what we call grouping selectors. So we can save that. So it's only after saving and refreshing that you can see. So we expect that now this one and this one, the letter spacing is now going to change to 5 pixels, just like here. So if we refresh, you can see that the letter spacing for our H2s have also changed to 5 pixels. So that is what we call grouping selectors. Now the other very important selector is the universal selector. Anything that you want to be applied in your entire page, you put it inside the universal selector. The universal selector we use, you can also see the other advantage of advanced editors. You can be able to collapse some bit of your code if you want, for example, your code to be more readable, to reveal more. So you can use, for example, the plus there to either hide or show. Okay. To universal selector, let me just do a comment. A universal selector. So the universal selector, we use a star like that to select all the elements. In CSS. And note how I separate different parts with a white space, like here. It's important to make your code more readable. So here, for example, we want to say that we want the background color. The background color, we want it to be white. We want it to be white. And for example, we also want all the text to be aligned to the right. So text align, text align, right, semicolon. So this is going to be applied to all the elements in our, it's going to be applied to all the elements in our HTML document. So if I save it like that, then go here and refresh, you can see that now all our text is being aligned to the right. For paragraphs, headings, everything, the text is being aligned to the right. Okay, so let's change that to left, save it, come back to our page and refresh, and now we have everything aligned to that side. The background color, for example, I know it didn't change because we just used white. If, for example, I want to use gray, my computer. If I save and refresh, then the background color changes to gray. Okay, let's get that back to white as it was. So that is what we call a universal selector. Okay, let's look at selector inheritance. Okay. Okay, let me see. Here we have this h1, then we have m. So this word HTML m is going to inherit the properties of h1 because it's inside h1. So for example, we said for h1s we want the letter spacing to be 5 pixels. So this content of the m is also going to have a letter spacing of 5 pixels, as you can see here. The letter spacing here is also 5 pixels. So that is what we call selector. That is what we call selector inheritance. So it's going to inherit all the properties, including the color. For example, you can see that this is red. The M here is red. But if we wanted to change it, we can be able to change it. And to change that, now we have to use what we call descendant selectors. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So let's come here. Here we can do a comment. Okay, we can do a comment. We call this grouping selectors. Okay, so let's come down here and do another comment. We call this descendant selectors. Okay, like that. So now what we want to do is to change. So we want to do em like that. So So we want to change the color. We want, if we have an M inside a H1, we want it to be colored blue. We want it to be colored blue. So if I save this, if I save that, then I come here and refresh, then you can see that because that word HTML is inside an M and it's inside a H1, it's going to be colored blue. Otherwise, any other M, like we have an M here, an M here inside this paragraph, it's not going to be colored blue. So we have another M here. Remember, M is used to italicize. We have another M here inside a paragraph, so that's not going to be colored blue. Only an M that is inside a H1 is going to be colored blue. So that is the concept of descendant selectors. Descendant selectors. How do we write a descendant selector? We first write the parent selector, then the child space, and then the child selector. Then we specify that. So for example, we want for M's that are inside a paragraph, we want to color them, for example, green, like that. So if I save that and I come here and refresh, did I save that one? Save. My computer is hanging again. Okay, refresh. So you can see, and now this has been colored green. This green, like that. We can also use a text property to change the text size of our paragraphs. You can see they're too small. So text size. Is it font size, not text size really? The property is called font size. Font size. I want to use M. I don't know if that is going to be too big. Let's save and refresh. Too big. Let me do, is it 1? Save, refresh. Okay, I think that's the default 1.5. M, refresh using F5 on my keyboard. Pardon my slow computer, really. This is bad. Okay, I think that's better, 1.5. Okay, so that's how you change the size of your text using the font size property. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is Pseudo Elements. Pseudo Elements. Expect this particular question, for example, in the exam and in the cards. Let me do the comment. Pseudo. Okay, so the pseudo element really is used to select a particular part of an element rather than the entire element. So that is what a pseudo element is used to do. For example, it can select the first, you can select the first letter of a paragraph. This particular example selects the first part of a paragraph. So for example, we can use font size here. Then for example, we do 2M. So we want the first letter of every paragraph to be 2M, and we want, for example, the color to be green, like that. So this is what we call a pseudo element. If I save this work, then come here and refresh, notice how the T here will change, and any other paragraph we have. Good. So you can see now for every paragraph, we have the first letter colored green and have a font size of 2M. So that is what we call a pseudo element, a pseudo element selector. Used to select part of an element. So we even use the pseudo element, for example, in tables to format even rows to have a certain background color, and maybe odd rows to have a different color type. So very important, pseudo elements. Okay, so after pseudo elements, we can have a look at the class selector. Now, class selector is closely related to ID selector. Only difference being, ID selector is for a particular element, while the class selector is used for several elements, can be shared among several elements. So that is what the class selector really does. So we can have a look at that. Anyone with a question so far before we look at the class and the ID selector? Anyone with a question or comment? Anyone with a question or comment, please?
Excuse me.
Yes, please, Ruth, go ahead.
You had mentioned in the pseudo elements you can use it to alternate the color of like odd text. Text in odd line. I'm not sure how to phrase it. Could you show us an example of how it's done?
Can I show you an example of how to do it?
Yes, kindly.
Okay, so we can't do that right now because we haven't looked at tables yet. So after we look at tables, you can remind me to show you how to do that, okay? Is that okay, Ruth?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there is a topic where we're going to look at how to do tables. So we're also going to look at how to use CSS to format tables. So after that, you can ask me that question. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you for responding to that poll. Okay, so we look at the class selector. Now, in order to look at the class selector, we will have to, for example, add some paragraphs here. Let me just copy these two paragraphs. Copy, then paste them here. Again, paste. Okay, so let me save it. Let's see what we have here. Refresh. Okay, so I have these paragraphs. This one. Okay, so I just want to demonstrate. The use of the class selector. Now, to write the class selector in CSS, we normally use a dot. We normally use a dot. So we can come to our external style sheet here. Let me do the comment. Class selector. Class selector. Class selector. Okay. So we normally use a dot to do a class selector. Then the name of that particular class. So for example, we can call it odd, for example. Is odd reserved? It's a reserved word, or is it being colored? Okay, anything will be colored red. Okay, so I can call it, for example, odd. So that's the name of the class, like that. Then, for example, I want the background color. I want the background color. I want the background color of those paragraphs to be HTML color codes. So let me pick a color. I want it to be I think that one is okay. Let me try this one. Copy. Then I can come here and paste it. Remember, it has to have a hashtag like that. So I want any paragraph which has the class odd. I want it to have this color, this background color. So I can now come to my HTML, and for example, for this particular paragraph, I include the class attribute. So class is equals to double colon, then the name of the class, odd, like that. Then I can save, come to my HTML and my web page, and then refresh. So you can see that now. The background color here. Is that particular color. So if I do that, let me copy this. If I copy this and also paste it on this, like that, and also paste it here on this paragraph, like that, then I save, then I refresh, then you can see that my odd paragraphs have a background color of pink. So you can see that. So that is how we use the class selector. If you want to reuse particular properties on different elements, then you put it inside a class. The other way to do it, like how we saw it in the notes, you can do the element. For example, p.odd. So if you do that, then any paragraph that has the odd class is simply going to be colored that. So with that, you might not, for example, be able to use it in a H1. But if you just leave it like that, then you can also use this odd inside, for example, you can use it, for example, inside even a heading. So for example, we can do H1 here, paste it there, odd, save it. If we refresh, then also our H1 is going to have a background color. We're going to have a background color of I'm going to have a background color of pink, for example. Let me just try it, save it, and see whether it's going to disappear. Refresh, so you can see if I do p.odd and I use odd in a h1, it's not gonna work. So I hope you get that difference. I hope you get that difference. Okay, so let me just leave that as that and then remove this from here by doing undo. Okay, so now we can look at the ID selector. Now for example, we have several h2s. If we want to apply a particular style on a particular h2, then we use the ID. We use the ID selector. So for example, for this h2, so in CSS, you can come here and do a comment. Okay, ID selector. Sorry. Okay. So with ID selector, you name it using a hashtag. Remember, for the class selector, it was using it was using a dot. For class selector, ID selector is hashtag. So for example, hashtag, let me just call it entity for lack of a better word, like that. So we want for the character entities h2. Oh, here, sorry, it is hanging. Okay, let me save this. Okay, so here we want, for example, to do for example, we want the letter spacing to be different. Letter spacing. Okay, or let's say even the font face. We want the font face to be different. That's the only thing you want to be different for this one. Is it font face? Okay. Wow. Okay, maybe we can try. There's a text property called text transform. Like that. So we can, for example, choose uppercase or uppercase, like that. Okay, so if we save this, we need now to go to our HTML page, then use the ID attribute. So ID is equals to, then I can type entity, the name of that ID. So ID means identifier. It has to be unique, so it can only be used on a single element. So we want, for this particular h2, we want it to have all these letters transformed to uppercase. So if I now save this in my HTML, then I come here and refresh, So observe this, how it changes. This one here, this paragraph, if I refresh, then you can see that everything changes to uppercase. So that is how we use, while all the other H2s remain as lowercase. So that's how we use an ID selector, for example. An ID selector. So you can also do H2 hashtag. If I save this, it should remain the same. Okay. I think now we can have a look at the Div and Span. Okay. So we are now here. The main difference between div and span is that div is a block level element. Block level meaning it will be, you'll have a space inserted before the div. Span element is an inline element, meaning it does not break. So these two elements were introduced in HTML5, and really they don't have any particular meaning. You can only make sense out of them by using CSS to specify the meaning of that particular div or that particular span, for example. So later on we are going to see, for example, how we can use div to structure different rows and columns in our web page. So normally that's how we use the div. For span, we just use it to specify a few things, for example, like a background image within a particular area. So you're going to see a lot of this as we move forward, but for now, just an introduction. So let me see how we can do this. And normally we don't use span and div alone in CSS. Normally we use either the class or the ID selector to specify how we want to format that particular span or div element. Okay, so let me see here. Okay. Let me see. I'm just trying to see what I can be able to do here. Okay. Okay, just a minute. Div. Just trying to see if I can put these three. Okay. Okay, so let me just see. Let me just show you an example. Let me put a div here. Div, then and the div here. So I'm enclosing these two paragraphs inside that div. Oh, what did I do? Okay. Like that. Then I also come here and also enclose these two paragraphs. Div. Then I end the div here. And div. Like that. Then I come here Okay, div like that. Then I end the div, like that. Okay, so if I save this and refresh, really nothing will change. Nothing changes. Nothing will change because it's just a block level element. So unless now we go into CSS and make some sense out of this. Let me see here. Sorry. Make a div float to the right. So let's try that. So we can use a class selector here. We can do div dot what can I call this? What can I call this? Something that will make sense. Can you allow me to call it float right, even if it's a very long name? So div float right, so that's the name of that particular class. Then we can say float right. Now the float property is used to make block level elements. Instead of breaking to the next line, it floats to the right. It floats to the right. So if I save this, for example, we save that. If we save that, then I come here, then on these divs, I use the class. Class is equals to float right like that. So if I copy this, copy and paste it here, then I come also and paste it here on this div like that. Float right. So just a moment. I can save it. Then I can come here and refresh. Okay. What did I mean? Was I supposed to float them to the left, for example? Let me see. Float left. Just a moment. We're almost done. Okay. So let me refresh. Okay. I'm not getting the effect that I wanted to show you. I know. I think I know what to do. Let me see. Let me first of all change this. Maybe I can call this intro, meaning introduction paragraphs. Let me just change that name for this divs. Intro. Intro. Okay. Intro. Okay. I can save it like that. Then I can come to CSS. It's okay. Float left. Then I want the length. Is the length or the width? The width, really. The width can be out, meaning it spans the width is like the height, really. That's the width. Then for the length, don't we have length? Okay. Width, length, is the height. And just a moment. Height. Oh, okay. So, okay. Let me see. For the width, we can make it 30% of the web page. For the height, we can make it auto. I think that is how I was supposed to do it. Then I wanted to have a border. I wanted to have a border. I want the border to be 2 pixels. Then we also have another one called border color. Property called border color. Border color. I want it, for example, to be purple, like that. Okay, so let's see how this is gonna look like if we save this. So if we come here and refresh, okay, almost something like I want. It's starting to appear, but okay, good. So now we can use some of the text. My border is not appearing, by the way. Border color. Oh, I mistyped this. Okay. We can use margin to push those things. Margin left, and put this, for example, to 10 pixels, like that, so that those divs will not be able to touch each other. So I've just saved using Ctrl S. If I refresh, you can see that now I have a margin on the left of 10 pixels. I can increase this to 30. I'm just showing you this, that most of the time with creating web pages, you'll just keep on trying values until you get what you want. Okay. So I think this is something like what I wanted to have. Still, I think my border is not showing. Border. Is it 5 pixels? Have I misspelled that color? Can I use, for example, green? Save it. Ctrl S. Refresh. How come my border is still not showing? My border is still not showing. Okay. Border. Okay. Then we have another box property called padding. We want things to be padded 5 pixels. Let's see how that will look like, so that the content does not come so close to the border. So if I refresh this, okay, my border is still not working. I don't know why. So we can open this up with another browser to see whether it's going to show on another browser. Did I install Firefox? Yes. So open with Firefox. Let's see whether Firefox is gonna show that border. Not now. Okay, so Firefox is also not showing the border. Wow. Let me Google CSS border property. W3 schools is the best. Border style. Do I need to begin with that? Okay. So let me try border style. The border style property. Okay. Border style. For example, solid. Let me indent this. Save it. Refresh. Okay, still not showing. What mistake am I making? Can anyone see any problem I'm having on my code? I don't understand why my border is not showing. Border 2 pixels solid purple. Okay, let me try this by Samuel. I've just done the same thing but on different lines, but we can collapse it in one line like Samuel is showing us. So let's try it. Border 2 pixels solid purple. Okay, so let's see whether that is going to work. Save it, come here and refresh. Thank you, Samuel. Good, it worked. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So this worked. Border 2 pixels solid purple. Thank you very much. So 2 pixels is the size, solid is the style, purple is the color. So I had done the same thing but on different lines. I'm not sure why it didn't work. Let me just remove this, for example, and see if we don't have a color, will it work? Is it my border color? Border color. Wow. Sorry. Oh. Okay. Purple. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. Okay, so let's just finish it at that. Let's finish it at that. So those are some of the box properties that we have looked at there. So as you've seen, that gives us, it gives us that. So margin is what is giving us that space around the border, between the content and the border. So really, that's just an example of how we can use the div. And here you can also learn the box properties. Some of the box properties we've looked at here. For example, here we have this space. That's called the margin. This one, margin. That's called the padding, really, padding. The space between the border and the content, padding. Then space between one element and another, this one is margin, like that. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I can see we already passed our time. Thank you very much, Samuel, for your contribution. Does anyone has a question? Oh, border style is required. Oh, thank you. And by default it has the value none. Okay, thank you very much, Samuel. Anyone with a question before we wind up our class today? Question or comment? Anyone with a question or a comment? So as a reading assignment, please go and read about the span element. We've not used it, and also explore some of the other properties that we've not looked at. We've looked at several text properties. We've looked at box properties like height, width. We've looked at margin. We've looked at padding. We've not looked at list properties. We're going to look at that next time. We've not done background image. We're going to do it. We've done floating. We've not done positioning. We're going to do positioning next time. So that is it for today. I hope you've learned something new. Please find time and do this before we meet again next week on Monday. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye bye for now.